My name's Greg and I've been riding for 45 years. Just after I got my full car licence, I decided that I wanted to go fast on motorbike, so I bought a 650 Yamaha. Then I went out with this girl and her father had Scott motorcycles. All of a sudden I'm into the bikes and I've got the disease. And then later on I found out when I first bought the Yamaha, I came up to my home on the grass, it was a bit wet, and I put the brakes on and I went sliding. I sort of bumped into the brick wall a bit under the lounge room window where my mother was, and she wasn't very happy. And my grandmother said, "You leave him alone," because my grandfather rode bikes, BSAs and that, and I didn't know, and he was in the war and he was a mechanic for all the army bikes. And I since found out all this afterwards. Mum didn't want to tell me about that. We'll go in order. The AJS I bought from Barry Graham, from Jack Graham Motorcycles in Arncliffe, 1981, and it was $1,650. I remember the price. I've had that ever since. The next one I bought was the Triumph Trident. I've had that for probably 12 years or something, and I've had the motor stripped down about, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. The Thunderbird, and it's a 900 triple. I sort of got a triple disease there for a little while. That two's enough. Then I bought the Square 4 from a fellow down in Victoria near Geelong, but it's beautiful to ride. It's like, sort of goes around corners like a car. You steer it a little bit. It's got a real low centre of gravity. It's a nice bike. And then I've got the Bluestar, which I've just built this year. Well, it's a 35 500 single Bluestar, and it used to be owned by Harry Hinton. Now, a friend of mine, before Harry died, he bought 3 bikes off him, and he sold the 350 and kept the 2 500s, but this bike was only a frame engine, gearbox and a tank. And so I had to get all the bits from all around the world. It took me a couple of years to get all the pieces together, and I built it. It's got a unique feature on it. It's got a 4-speed gearbox, but it's got a foot change on it that's external. See, before that they had tank change. It was a development that only was on a bike for 2 years. So it's a special case and everything. It's just a special arrangement that they put on them, and it works really well. On those bikes too, I love the big headlight with the fluted glass. It looks beautiful, you know, the big 8-inch headlight. They've got a unique oil system on them. They don't have a return on the oil pump. The oil tank is in the crankcase of the bike, but in the front in a separate compartment. So when the oil goes and feeds through the engine and the big end and everything, the flywheels flick it over this ledge and put it back in the tank. So there's no need for a return circuit on the oil pump. So it's sort of unique in that sort of way. You'd think in the 30s they didn't have any good ideas, but it's a great idea. I've always liked working with my hands and I don't mind getting dirty, you know, I like that. The challenge is to make something out of nothing, really, and save a bike's life. Like resurrect something that would probably never go again. And I've done a lot of bikes like that. I've done, I don't know, 40 or 50 bikes. I've lost count how many bikes I've put back on the road. I probably enjoy working on bikes more than I do riding them. And I really enjoy riding bikes. The trick is with riding bikes, it's like fixing them. They're all different, so you've got to put a different hat on each bike you get on. The gears will be on the other side, or the brakes will be on the other side, or there's no brakes because they're just no good. And the engine's different, and the centre of gravity's different, and all that. Thank God that the clutch and the front brake's always on the same side, because if you really get into a stick, you just grab both handles and try and pull up. I've got a T140, an 82 model T140. I had it here a few years ago and I did the engine up and everything. I've become a bit of a specialist on Triumph engines, especially the top end, and stopping them from leaking. A lot of people, you've got to pay attention to detail when you fit them together, and there's a certain way you do it. If you don't do it right and use the correct seals, Viton seals and that, for example, they will leak. You know, and I've got a Norton Commando out there that's got electrical problems, which is, surprise, surprise, with a Norton. But not many people do what I do. There's not many. A lot of people come to me, and even if it's a little job, but I'll do it properly because I always do other people's bikes as if it's mine. And when you ride the old bikes, you've got to keep in mind that every bike is so different, and when they take the bike away, I say, you're never going to have a brand new bike again. And none of my bikes, I've never finished them. I'm always improving them and trying to work out ways to make the brakes work and those things like that. But you have to learn to ride them. You have to learn that to be aware that you're not going to be able to pull up quickly, and it's not going to accelerate quickly. And one example is I ride with an open face because I like to hear what's going on. A lot of people ride with a full face, and I know it's safer, but I worry about my bikes. I like to, if I hear a noise, I'm concerned, so that's why I wear an open face. If they look good, they've got to look good first of all. Like the new Nortons look good, and the Triumphs, I like the Triumphs. I like the Hinckley. I've got a Hinckley Triumph there, a 900 Thunderbird. It's a great bike. It's a very strong, fast bike, and I don't mind them. I'm not a real fan of the bikes that with all the fairings and that. It takes half an hour to get to even look at the thing, you know, to take the covers off and everything. Riding a bike with ABS and traction control and all that sort of thing, it's like the old saying, you know, you want to drive a car, drive a manual. You're not riding it if it does everything for you. If you've got other things on your bike that make it easier to ride, you lose your skills. All those reversing sensors on things, and my reversing sensors stopped working on the car, and everyone says, "Why don't you fix it?" I go, "Why?" If I hear a crunch noise, I know I'm there. Like, when you're riding along, you don't think about all the things that you would normally worry about or think about. You think about, well, this is beautiful, and you smell the cow shit, and you smell the smells and the food shops, but you're listening for, what's that noise? And you become part of the bike. You like it's your bike's brain thinking, am I going to get home? Is the clutch cable going to break? Am I going to make it home? It just makes it different to getting in a new car and just driving down the road, and when it rains, you don't get wet. But when you're on a bike, is it going to rain? Are you going to get soaking wet? Oh, did I take me wet weather gear? It's just the variety of it all. Don't start off too big. Start off with a smaller classic bike and see if you get the disease, because you can't shake it once you get it. It's the same thing. If you're going to do bikes up, you've got to get used to it. You've got to get used to chasing up the bits and used to learning, and you've got to get used to making mistakes.
There are so many classic bikes that I would love to own one day, including the one in this next video, an Egley Vincent. Check it out over here, and remember, you can't buy happiness, but you can ride a motorcycle, and that's kind of the same thing.